Welcome and thank you for joining us today. This is Scaling Up Violence Prevention in Schools Across the Global South. Your moderator today is Jody van der Heyde, Inspire Working Group Global Coordinator for the ISS. Please keep your microphones and cameras turned off until we reach the question and answer portion for today's event. The question and answer session will be conducted using both the chat function and the raise hand function on your Zoom application. To access the chat function, kindly scroll to the bottom of your Zoom application, click on the chat button and a chat box will appear. Should you wish to raise your hand, kindly click on the reactions button to access the raise hand function. During the question and answer session, the moderator will acknowledge you and you will have to unmute your microphone and turn on your camera to make your comment or ask your question. Please note that we will evaluate this event using a poll. The evaluation is completely anonymous and it helps us to present better events in the future. Kindly do take a moment to complete it. It will be launched following the presentations portion for today's event. As we wait for the final participants to connect their audio, we kindly remind you to please keep your microphones muted and your cameras turned off until we reach the Q&A portion for today. Kindly note that since this is a public event being broadcast live on YouTube, Chatham House Rule does not apply. This is Scaling Up Violence Prevention in Schools Across the Global South. Jody, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, TJ. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's seminar on scaling up violence prevention interventions in schools across the Global South. My name is Jody van der Heyde. I am based in the Justice and Violence Prevention Program at the Institute for Security Studies, and I coordinate the Inspire Working Group and will be chairing today's session. This year, the Institute for Security Studies and the Inspire Working Group will jointly host a series of 4 online webinars related to Inspire, the 7 strategies for ending violence against children. Inspire is the leading evidence-based technical package to support countries in preventing and responding to violence against children. This is our 3rd one of the year, and we will have one more webinar in the last quarter, so please be on the lookout for that one. School-based violence prevention are one of the 7 evidence-based strategies in the package, and evidence shows that these interventions can effectively reduce violence against children. Gains in education for both boys and girls protect against both victimization and perpetration of certain forms of violence, including childhood sexual violence, youth violence, partner violence, and childhood marriage. Every day, millions of children across the world gather in schools, which makes it an ideal place where children can learn and adopt pro-social behaviors that can contribute to preventing violence within the school and community. Life skills training can prevent violence by enhancing children's communication, conflict management, and problem-solving skills, and assisting them to build positive peer-to-peer relationships and gender-equitable training. There is immense global interest in the scaling up process, including the challenges and opportunities and what works and what doesn't for successful scale up. We are very grateful to have expert implementers and evaluators from Uganda and India who will share their experiences of implementing and scaling up such programs. We will learn about their processes, what worked and what didn't, and the impact that it had on children. We will be together for the next hour and a half, and we really intend the next 90 minutes to be a discussion, and we encourage participation from the audience. Please feel free to pop questions, comments, and reflections in the chat box throughout the event. In terms of how we will structure the conversation, each panelist will have about 10 to 12 minutes to present, after which I will invite our discussant to share her reflections for what we've heard and any implication this will have for policy and practice. Thereafter, I will open the room to a longer Q&A session with the audience. We are together for a limited time, so a gentle reminder that I will keep track of time and let you know if you are going over time and when you have about a minute left for your presentation. So it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Hope Wambi. Hope is a technical advisor in the Violence Against Children Prevention team at Raising Voices, an NGO in Uganda working to prevent violence against women and children. She is the coordinator of the Coalition for Good Schools Africa Hub and has over 10 years experience working to prevent violence and children and is passionate about her role in doing this. Hope will be sharing the work that they are doing on the Good Schools Toolkit. Hope, if you are ready, please share your screen and go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues, from wherever you're joining from. My name is Hope Wambi, and as I've been introduced, and I work with Raising Voices. At Raising Voices, we work to prevent violence against women and violence against children. But today I am pleased to share with you our experience of scaling the Good School Toolkit in Uganda. And the Good School Toolkit is the methodology that we use to prevent violence against children in schools. For some of you who are not so familiar with the Good School Toolkit, it is cited in the Inspire, but it's a collection of ideas and tools that help prevent violence against children and create good schools. It is also a school-led implementation for over a period of 18 months along 6 steps. The Good School Toolkit is evidence-based. We had a randomized control trial that indicated that the GST reduced physical violence perpetrated by school staff to learners by 42% and other benefits over the period of 18 months. And then it was also originally developed for primary schools and later adapted for secondary schools. And now we are in the process of developing the Good School Toolkit Agile, which is mainly for scaling up because it's more of a self-help kind of tool. In terms of scaling the GST, I want to share a little bit of how we understand scale or our approach to scale at Raising Voices and what scale means to us. Different people define scale differently, but Raising Voices is part of the CASP, and the CASP collectively have come together and looked at what feminist scale would look like. What are some of the key elements of the feminist approach to scale? And for us, we value the vertical in terms of numbers, but we feel numbers are not enough. So beyond the numbers, we look at deep impact, we look at collaborations, but with mutual respect. We look at balanced power in terms of the collaborations. We also look at high quality in terms of what we are scaling up. So beyond scaling and beyond numbers, we ensure that there is continuous, for example, capacity strengthening for the partners and for the methodology that we are using, the people that we are working with, the activists. We ensure that there is continuous mentorship, but also we facilitate collaboration with the governing bodies for their buy-in, but also for sustainability. So scale means different things to different people, but that's our understanding. And I'll be able to share a link to this particular work with a CASP for those who are interested in reading a little bit more about the feminist principles and approach to scale. In terms of our journey at Raising Voices, it's been a back and forth. We've tried different things and we have learned from different things, and we are still trying out different things and learning from them. It's not one way, but I'll share some of the examples that have worked and some of the things that we are continuing to do and that we are continuing to learn. And for starters, there is what we call the Violence Against Children Prevention Centers. Many years ago, Raising Voices worked with community-based organizations. It was a tripartite relationships, and our goal was to have, the donor bringing money, and Raising Voices is providing technical support, and then we have community-based organizations who were implementing the Good School Toolkit in the schools in their respective districts. As time went by, of course, we drew lessons, but we have scaled down to 2. Now we have 2 community-based organizations, which we call the Violence Against Student Prevention Centers, and they have been able to contribute 120 schools to the overall schools that we are working with. We drew some lessons from that module, and one of the lessons which stood out clearly was most of the national and the community-based organizations have project kind of funding. And when it comes to social norms change, when it comes to what works in terms of preventing violence against children, for example, for the Good School Toolkit, you need like a period of 18 months, and you need to continue walking the journey with the schools and the communities. For some of them, the funding gets done along the way, and it's just a reminder to everyone in the room that as we look at funding and supporting, scaling up some of the methodologies that work to prevent violence against children, we need to think long term. And then another model that has worked for us that we are still trying out and working out is working through partners. Many partner organizations working in schools reach out to Raising Voices, and Raising Voices provides TOT and also commits to providing technical assistance, at least 2 physical technical assistance sessions. And these organizations are able to implement the Good School Toolkit in their respective schools where they are working without a lot of support from Raising Voices. And that has also seen the Good School Toolkit go to different spaces where we have not been working as Raising Voices. For example, we have a partner that implemented the GST in the humanitarian setting. We also have partners who have taken the Good School Toolkit beyond borders, like we have Haki Elimi in Tanzania, who is running with the ideas of the Good School Toolkit beyond the borders of Uganda. So that's another pathway to scale that we have worked with and we are still working with. And then I'll delve a little bit further on the last one, which is the regional resource persons, because this is our current main pathway to scale. And in terms of the regional resource persons, the RRP, it simply means community activists. These are people who are based in the communities. Many of them have been teachers or head teachers or education officers, and some of them are just parents, but they have interfaced, they have experienced the Good School Toolkit. They are passionate about the ideas in the toolkit and the idea of preventing violence against children. So they are supporting their schools in their respective districts in areas where we cannot be as Raising Voices because we do very minimal direct implementation. So the RRPs are located in different districts, in 28 districts in the country. And on a daily, in addition to their role they do as a teacher or as whatever they do, they support the schools to implement the Good School Toolkit. So for those who are interested in numbers, for the original RCT that we conducted for Raising Voices direct implementation, that was in 42 schools and they were all primary. I indicated that the Good School Toolkit was originally for primary, but then later on, the first cohort of the regional resource persons who helped us to reach 1,000 primary schools were 43 in number. And then we have now the current cohort of 25 RRPs who are reaching 400 secondary schools. That means on average, each RRP supports like 16 secondary schools. The kind of dynamics in secondary schools are a little bit different. So you'll see that the number of schools has reduced a little bit, but the dynamics are a little bit different. In terms of what Raising Voices does to strengthen the capacity of the regional resource persons, there is a lot we do. We are a learning organization and we embed this even in our scale up, in our scaling work. So for example, if you look at the regional resource persons, they have been supported. They interface with the Raising Voices staff at least once in a quarter, and they have remote continuous capacity strengthening activities and sessions. Some of these are through virtual meetings like the Zoom and the like, but others are through phone calls, but they are arranged and they are planned in such a way that there is something being passed on every when they have a session. And one of the tools that we are really, really excited and grateful for in terms of supporting the regional resource persons is our mobile app. So Raising Voices has a mobile app that each regional resource person can access. They are provided with gadgets, and these gadgets are collected to the internet, and they can, one, collect data in real time when they're in the school. They can collect data and put into the mobile app, and Raising Voices staff can access the data in real time. But also the mobile app has a section for content, for learning, for their own learning. So I can access, for example, if I want to know more about positive discipline or about a good learning environment, I can access those lessons, and I can also administer self-assessment to see where I am in each field, and then I can ask for support. And another exciting thing about the mobile app is it has an interface kind of section where I can post a question, I can post a comment, and I'll get support from everybody on the app. It could be the staff, it could be another regional resource persons, but the app has been very, very instrumental in terms of strengthening the capacity, but in terms of helping us learn from our work. And periodically, of course, when they visit the schools, because they visit the schools once a quarter, they are able to collect the data, and that data is, we make sense out of it, and then it helps us in our debrief with the resource persons, and then we can see how we can channel the appropriate support. So that's about the regional resource persons model. And beyond the regional resource model, regional resource person model, there's also a lot that we are doing. We are also working, for example, with government, with the line ministries, to make sure that some of these ideas in the Good School Toolkit permeate through to the different schools and different spaces. We work in coalitions, we work in networks, for example, the Uganda Child Rights NGO network. So what we do there is we have different pathways, and we ensure that we infuse a dose, or if you like, some best practices within what everybody in the network is doing. And by doing that, different people make sure that they pass on this message to the different spaces where they are operating. So the RRP model, of course, has registered some challenges, even as we do the scale. For example, there are teacher transfers. You know, you have trained this teacher, he's running with a project, then tomorrow you find that they've been transferred to another school. Luckily enough, some of these who are transferred also go with the knowledge, and they start the implementation, and they reach out to the RRPs for support. So whereas it is a negative thing, but it's encouraging to see that some of them are passionate and they move with the ideas. And then also perception about the RRPs gaining financially from the program. That happens a lot in the different organizations. And then logistically, sometimes we find that some schools are located in rural areas where it's very hard to access internet. So if you're to do, say, a capacity strengthening session, they have to move to a place where they can access internet. And that sometimes hampers with the process of collecting data. It cannot be in real time. They'll collect and they'll only synthesize when they go to a place where they can access the internet. In terms of the lessons learned, this is my last slide. We have learned a lot, but one of the things, these are some of the things that stand out. Like, it's important to invest time in tailored capacity strengthening for whichever structure that you choose to work with. There is no one size fits all. We have to have the capacity training, which is tailored to each model. And then far and remote schools need special attention. We have talked about that. Even within the pool of resource persons, there is where we ensure that some people get specific kind of contextualized support. And then the RRPs are within the communities and they are passionate about the issue. So that means that beyond even the schools that they are working with, they are helpful in terms of scaling these ideas beyond the schools. So some of them are part of our media campaigns that we run periodically. They are part of the national dialogue that we conduct to bring communities together and have discussions around the violence against children prevention. So that's what I can share for now about our experience scaling the Good School Toolkit in Uganda. Thank you, and back to you, Jody.
Thank you so much, Hope, for that great presentation and perfectly on time. You raise a number of important issues, and I really love the idea of a feminist approach to scale, and please share that resources if possible. You also mentioned the importance of how scale and implementation is an ongoing learning process. It's not something that we just do once and then go on to the next one. There's constant reflection. It requires constant refining and learning as we go. So thank you so much. I look forward to the discussion later. We will now continue our conversation and shift focus across the continent from Uganda to India. It is my pleasure to introduce Nyana Chowdhury, the head of programs at Breakthrough India. She also co-leads the strategic partnerships and scale-up efforts in the organization. With over 2 decades of experience, she has worked with various grassroots organizations as well as national and international grant-making organizations. Her expertise lies in program planning, strategizing within a rights-based framework, and aims to achieve sustainable results. Nyana, thank you so much for joining us, and please go ahead and share screen when you are ready. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just do it. Thank you so much, Jody. I just hope this happens. Yeah, is it showing?
Yes, this is perfect. We can see it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jody. It's always embarrassing to sit through an introduction like that. I work with Breakthrough. Breakthrough is an organization that works towards, that is working for about 24 years now, 23 years in the running. And we actually work towards culture to change culture. We use culture to change culture. And we visualize a world in which violence and discrimination against women and girls will not be acceptable. It will be unacceptable, so that we want to do that by addressing the regressive cultural norms. So at this point in time, we work in about 13 districts. I do not know whether that makes sense, but a district is about 1 million population in India. And we work in 4 states, which are all Hindi speaking. We basically work with Hindi, although India has about 1,500 languages which are mainstreamed, and there are many other languages, but we work in Hindi. And over the years, we have worked with about 900,000 adolescents with our gender transformative curriculum through schools and the communities. We work with over 3,000 young adults, and we have reached about 400 million people through our mass media campaigns. At this point in time, we also work on partnering with state governments. I know in some of the African countries, they are called as counties. We call them states. And state governments are pretty independent governments, and they can have their own partnerships with NGOs, and schools are under their purview. So we try to take our gender transformative curriculum through the state governments to the schools. So we are reaching out to about 26,000 upper primary government schools in Punjab and about 23,000 schools in Odisha. So these are the 2 states. Odisha does not speak Hindi, neither Punjab. So this is our new areas that we are reaching out to. So what are the prominent campaigns? I want to talk about Breakthrough's prominent campaigns because these campaigns have become our foot in the ground. And for this, what we have, one of our most famous campaigns is Bell Bajao, Ring the Bell, which has reached various parts of the world, wherein we talk about bystander intervention, wherein we say that whenever you hear a domestic violence incident going on, please do not stay silent, ring the bell, and then you can ask for something, just interrupt the violence, but do not stay a bystander and not doing anything. Violence is not a private matter. This actually helped us reach about 130 million and 110 million in 2 different phases. And this has been replicated in 9 countries of the world. As we talk about flipping the norm, we talk about a campaign wherein we talk about share your story with your sons, wherein we talk about how violence on the streets, sexual harassment on the streets is everybody's business. And this is something that women are taught to keep shut about. They're not supposed to talk about these. But hearing through this campaign, we try to build a dialogue between a mother and a son, wherein the mother says that she has faced sexual harassment on the way to office, on her way to work, and makes the son aware that this should not happen with any woman in the world. Similarly, we have two very interesting characters, animated characters called Pinky and Pankaj. They talk to adolescents in their own language, and they talk about various different things that one needs to start a dialogue on. And one of our campaigns is Baaton ke booth, which is like a booth for talking. We believe that only when you talk to each other, you can build a sustainable solution. So why do we think that gender norms is very important to address both violence against women and violence against children? We see that gender-based norms actually is all about power. Its norms actually sustain violence based in the family. And as violence is justified in the family space, this is also justified in the school space and in the public space. And also women justify violence in later lives because they have often been told that you are beaten up because somebody else loves you. Your father loves you, that's why he beats you up. It's for your own good. And we also see how gender-based discrimination is perpetuated in the family space by giving more importance to the boys, investing more on the boys in terms of resources and less on the girls. At the same time, our research also shows that boys are exposed to more family level physical violence than girls. Boys are beaten up much more, and there is much more acceptance of boys being physically beaten up in the home space. So these norms need to change if we want to change the world towards and its attitude towards violence against children and girls. So we work with adolescents, like I told you, towards changing the gender norms, and we work through a socio-ecological model. So in which the individual or the adolescents are at the center. You have seen that over the years, we have worked with about 900,000 adolescents, and they form the center of our work. We also work with their families, their teachers, their communities, and the village administration. It is called the Panchayat Raj members, PRI members in India. We work with all of them so that the adolescents not only understand how violence and discrimination are not acceptable, they also get a space to be able to speak about them and to be able to address their concerns in the larger framework. These are some of the results that we have got so far. Before that, it is how do we do it? So we call this deep transformation. In the deep transformation, we work through a 2-year school-based gender equity program for 11 to 14-year-old boys and girls. We work with all genders. We also have a similar curriculum, which we take to the community mostly, but also in schools where more girls and boys are in school in the age group of 15 to 18-year-olds. We also work with young adults between 19 to 25-year-olds because they can be great role models and they can be the sustainability keepers in the community. They are also our champions of change. We organize parental engagement at the community, also at the school. We do community and teacher engagement to build an ecosystem that values girls and renounces violence. We work on a safe school program. Yeah, we talk about no corporal punishment, creating student bodies, activation of school management committees. School management committees are parent-teacher committees, which are mandated by the government, but most of the schools do not have it at present. We try and activate them, or they have these committees only on paper. So we try and activate them and constantly talk about the need of continued education of girls and renouncing of corporal violence. So these are the outcomes we have seen so far. I'm not going to read out all of them. we can talk about that we see a great change in gender attitude, not only in girls, but more so in boys. We have seen that the number of years spent, number of time spent in the school has increased for girls, and age of marriage has gone up. We also see that because we address the questions around discrimination, girls' access to health services have increased, and there is more chance of a girl staying in school. How do we make schools safer for all? So we work towards creation of a student council. Students get together, they make a committee, they vote for each other, and they become ministers of health, ministers of safety, ministers of food, etc. And they run and they raise their concerns and issues with the teachers. I have already talked about strengthening school management committees. We are also creating child safeguarding committees in each school. This is a breakthroughs initiative, unlike school management committee. However, we take the government along, and many district governments have given us a mandate to take this forward. So connecting schools to district level child protection committees for redressal is one of the things that we are doing, and suggestion boxes in each school. We are at this point in time scaling up the program with 2 state governments, and we are trying to make the school a gender transformative place. So what happens if the school is a gender transformative place? So adolescent girls will have agency to ask more questions in the schools. There will be more intergenerational and intergender communication. Teachers will be able to explore their own gender biases and talk about gender normative behavior in their classrooms. The state leadership will support school teachers, and parents will get engaged through SMCs and make sure that similar conversations are upheld in the homes for a better world for all genders. And that's my presentation. Thank you so much. I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Nayana. That was an excellent presentation. It's clear that your work has achieved excellent outcomes. And I think particularly the point about how gender transformative can have really positive impacts for health outcomes, especially for girls, is something really important, and how it doesn't just remain within the gender sphere, but it has almost like a knock-on effect. Is really important. Thank you so much for your presentation. We will now, thank you very much to our 2 speakers, and we will now shift gears slightly to our discussant. I would like to introduce you to Dr. Patricia Watson. She is the Chief Director for Social Inclusion and Partnerships in the Department of Basic Education in South Africa. Through policymaking, monitoring, and evaluation, she leads the directorates responsible for school safety, social cohesion, and equity in education, as well as school-related GBV prevention. She is motivated by what it means to put the best interests of the child at the center of sectoral reforms and innovations, and has adopted the INSPIRE framework to inform sector reporting functions responsible for ending violence against children. Dr. Watson, thank you for joining us. And based on what you have heard from these 2 presentations, we would love to hear your thoughts and reflections and any implications that this would have for policy practice. Please go ahead. Thank you. I'm so sorry, you are muted. There we go.
Right, thank you very much, Hope and Nayana, for the presentations. What's so inspiring is the commitment that both of the projects are showing towards scaling and being real change makers in the global space, and doing that through grounded feminist practice. And I think people gathered today will really take that away with them, because it inspires hope, whether you're working in the NGO space or in the government space, that we can continue to see violence in our communities. The work that Hope is doing Hope I visited the project Raising Voices in Uganda some years ago. We were hosted by the organization. So I have all these beautiful memories returning of what it meant to go around the school and see the children owning the work. In today's presentation, we didn't get a sense of that tactile, sensory experience of the good school approach being something that children can really own. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is, in your attempts to scale and your understanding of that being done along feminist principles, where is the voice of the child in the space? And how do you ensure that their ongoing ownership of the effectiveness of the Good School Toolkit? And then my second question is, how are you seeing a global agile approach? Because all over the world, we look to your work and we're inspired, we're motivated, we would love to bring it home. And then we hit a number of the difficulties in our various contexts. And really one of them is that Raising Voices is a very unique NGO. And how do you replicate the culture of Raising Voices as an organization? So those are my two questions with Hope, and I'll leave them with you, Hope, for a little bit while I turn to Nayana. And just to say, Nayana, I love the idea of using culture to change culture. And the scale at which you're doing that, using different media platforms, is really breathtaking and inspirational. One of the points you made is that these get easily adapted across different countries. Could you speak a little bit more to that adaptation? What would it mean to move this type of content to the African continent? And what localization concerns you might raise in doing so? And then, Ayana, I was very interested in how you are using the boy child to be one of the change makers in the transformation of gender norms. And just to say, you know, how vulnerable are you finding the boy child in the context of these patriarchal norms? Because patriarchy harms the boy child too. And what are some of the strategies you've used to win over the boy child from being a patriarchal ally? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patricia, for your important questions and reflections. Before I invite the panelists to answer, I would like to also open up the floor to the audience at this point. Please feel free to raise your hand. In that case, I will ask you to unmute and you can ask your question, and you can also put your video on if you wish. Alternatively, please pop your questions in the chat and I will then read them to our panelists. So I think, Hope, I know you have a lot of questions. Would you like to answer them? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jody, and thank you, Patricia, for the questions. It's exciting to hear someone speak about the children, and thank you for the compliments of our work at Raising Voices. I just want to mention that, you know, just like our name suggests, you know, preventing violence against children, one of the core pillars of the Good School Toolkit is the children's agency, their participation. And one of the things that we usually point out, one of the structures, that the glue that holds the implementation together, the sustainability together, they are the structures that we work with from the onset. For example, on the onset, when the GST implementation starts in the schools, there needs to be a children's committee, there needs to be a teachers committee, there needs to be a parents committee. And surprisingly, what we are learning as we adapt the Good School Toolkit to the secondary, especially with the adolescents, we are learning that there's a lot of agency. In some of the schools, the learners are even going ahead of the teachers. And when we offer TA, when the RRPs go to the schools, they come back and we tell them, it's important that the structures move together. Otherwise, the teachers might not own the implementation. So there's a lot that happens to make sure that the children's voices are heard. For example, when it comes to issues like suggestion boxes, when it comes to issues like the discipline, the court, the discipline court. It is one of the interesting things that happens in the school where students are part of enforcing discipline. They are given an opportunity to exhibit the principles of fairness, of negotiations, so they come together, and if there are cases to be heard before they are referred to the teacher, they sit on a weekly basis, and some of them respond to the issues. But also the committees are doing so many things in terms of popularizing the GST ideas on the school assembly through their classes. And another thing that we emphasize within the Good School Toolkit are policies. For example, it's not enough to do the implementation if the school, say, has tolerance for violence. So in terms of developing the policies, because we know that some schools already have the rules and regulations, but how are they formulated? Is the student's voice in there? So in the Good School Toolkit, one of the things we emphasize is that when schools are coming together to think about the policies that are going to govern their school, to think about bringing back the policies from the national and contextualizing them to the local, let the learners be involved so that they know, in my school, this is what constitutes violence. These are the corresponding penalties in case I do this, and this is what I'll go through in case I experience this. Here is where I can report. If they're coming up, for example, with a referral directory, like if I experience violence, where can I go? Where can I get support? The learners are at the center. So the learners are really a critical point when it comes to implementing and the success of the GST. And you know what? Another thing which is really exciting, recently we are doing a study to learn from the RRP model, whether it is something that works, what are the lessons, how do we strengthen it, can we take it out there? But we have learned that some of the responses we are getting indicate that the students who had experienced the GST ideas from the primary level are very active when they go to the secondary schools. So you'll find that when you're in a secondary school, because the cohort 2 is mainly concentrated on the secondary schools, the learners, some of them who have experienced those ideas, have run with them, and they are taking the leadership positions within their schools. So that was a very legit question, and there is a lot that we are doing in that regard. And secondly, the second question was about the organizational culture of raising voices. We love to share our culture. We love to share almost everything that we do. And in every space that we go to, we try to go with our identity as raising voices with what we do. So we have had a lot of documentation. We are still learning to document our story. For example, we have learned that over the years, Raising Voices has conducted a lot of media campaigns on the issue of violence against children and violence against women. And we are having a documentation for all the years we've been doing this, for over 10 years, and we need to publish that and share. But also, if you go to our website, we make sure that everything that we do as Raising Voices, we try to make maybe a policy brief and try to share a bit of us in every space that we go to. And of course, if you come to our organization also, we'll try to infect you with our culture. So yeah, it's work in progress, but we are trying to share as much as possible. And this extends, by the way, to the regional resource persons. One of the quotes from the regional resource persons study that we are still conducting from our qualitative research, we learned that some of them view themselves as an extension of Raising Voices and its culture to the community. And hearing that from a regional resource person is very powerful, and it's an attest to how much they feel part of the process and how they feel they can contribute ideas out there. Thank you so much. I will pause here. Over to you, Jody.
Thank you so much, Hope. I really am so inspired by how you said that, when the kids move to high school, they really they apply those values and they become leaders, and it shows that they are empowered in some sense, and a lot of what they learn through the interventions, they really do internalize and live it out, which is really what we are looking for. So thank you so much. Nyana, are you ready to respond to Patricia's questions? Thank you. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Did you think you were going to give me an option of saying, oh, sorry, Patricia, I'm not ready. Can I say this tomorrow? Okay, so on that note, adaptation of campaigns, yeah. So adaptation of campaigns happen the most around Bell Bajao, that's Ring the Bell campaign. It has also gained popularity. It has also gained popularity in many of the countries of Southeast Asia and Africa, and people have used the strategies of interrupting violence. It actually helped us because the then General Secretary of UN, Ban Ki-moon, had been on a stage and said, ring the bell. So yeah, but Patricia, it is easier to adapt a campaign to a different country's scenario because you pick up the main the main message, that's bystander intervention in the case of Bell Bajao, and then you replicate it. However, our experience was that Bell Bajao or Ring the Bell campaign worked the best in India because there was a support available. Right? There were other trainings going on. There was a PWDVA, a Protection of Women Against Domestic Violence Act, that came into being. So which actually makes it possible for people to intervene in there. So I am saying that replication of campaigns are definitely possible, but replication of campaigns will have to be done in looking at the local context and picking up the local context. In India also, when we take even our gender transformative curriculum from state to state, our examples, the instances that we choose to exemplify a situation changes. Because even we have seen a game which is commonly played in one state, the other state does not even know the name of that game. So we have to constantly do a situational analysis. We generally do a situational analysis to adapt it to the local context. So I'm trying to respond to the question around whether they can be adapted. Yeah, definitely they can be adapted. All our materials are available in our in the internet, in our website, wherein you can go and look for teachers' manuals, manuals for students, manuals for others. However, we have also created a digital Taro Ki Toli module, which is now in Hindi, but getting translated in English, which is a downloadable play app, which is going to be available very soon. And anybody can use it and change it to their own context using their own example and take it to their areas. Now, the second question around the boy child as a change maker and how vulnerable the boy child is to patriarchy. This has been a struggle for Breakthrough because Breakthrough decided from the very beginning that we are not only going to work with girls, but we are going to work with all genders, particularly boys who are present in the school system and in the community, because we believe that a gender normative world is neither good for boys, nor good for girls, nor good for anybody taking up any gender and aligning to any gender for that matter. So boy children, so we do not believe in a campaign around like the boy is doing something for the girl or something for the third gender, but the boy is doing something towards changing the gender normative world because it is going to make it better for him. He has a stake in it. If he can live an equal life, if he can get equal opportunities of becoming whatever he wants to be, a dancer, a painter, or does not want to be the main bread earner of the family, he has a world which is accepting that. So our boy child is very much part of all our program. It used to be 70 70%, 30% girl is to boy ratio before the COVID, because in the government schools, we generally get more girls, less boys, because girls, the families do not invest money on the girls. So government schools are free, so they go to free schools, and boys go to private schools. But after COVID, because we work generally in the impoverished communities, the family income has gone down, and the number of enrollment in the government schools have gone up because these are free schools. And the second thing is the enrollment of boys have also gone up. So at this point in time, it's 50-50. Many a times, donors ask us to only report girls as our direct reach and boys as our indirect reach. We take that, but we tell the donor that we would work with both. In your report, we may report only girls, but for us, boys are not going to go out of a class in which we are talking about how gender attitudes affect everybody, how change in the body affect everybody, how sexual harassment on the street is a matter of everybody. That is something that we are not going to stop. So I hope I could respond to those two questions.
Thank you very much, Nayana. Patricia, I don't know if you maybe want to respond and comment. I think, I'm so sorry, you are on mute. I see you're still on mute. I'm wondering if there we go, perfect. You are unmuted now. But we cannot hear you. I'm wondering if our TJ or Richard in the background could maybe assist in unmuting. Okay, Patricia, maybe try again, because it says that you're unmuted. Okay, I think, Patricia, while you working through the audio problems, I do see that our fellow colleagues from Raising Voices and Breakthrough have popped a number of resources in the chat. That is great. We love it when we share information and resources, so please go ahead and access those. I'm just trying to, okay, Patricia, no problem. I see your message that your connection is broken and you need to log in. Not a problem at all. Thanks for letting us know. Please share your comments in the chat. We would love to hear your thoughts from the audience. Yes, I see a comment from, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, G. Tinder. Please go ahead, unmute yourself. Thank you so much for your question. You seem to have disappeared. Please go ahead. We would love to hear your question. Okay, I can see you on the screen. Please go ahead. I'm not sure if your audio is. No, I also cannot hear you. I just want to check. Is the audio coming through on my side? There we go. Please go ahead.
It is working now, right?
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so thank you for this lovely conversation. I am Jitendra and I work at Breakthrough. And I was listening to Hope, Patricia, and Anna sharing their ideas and thoughts, and it was lovely to hear various ideas. And thank you for all the resources that are there. One question that popped into my mind while I was going through Raising Voices resources, it's a question that I want to ask you, that how do you ensure protection against violence when the state itself is causing, or one of the reasons why the violence is happening? For example, the recent gay bill that has come up in May, it was signed by the Ugandan government. So then how does that protect the children there? Because young children are aware about the sexuality after a particular age, and so then it becomes a very unsafe space for them, because the bill is very, 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 and it has been discussed among all the activist groups and everywhere, that it's very strict, and it also offered death penalty, which is very quite sad to see happening in today's time and age. So then, what are the strategies that organization like Raising Voices and this is a question to Hope, like how would you, what kind of like strategies would you be applying, and what kind of strategies would you be placing to protect those children who might be queer, who might be from the LGBTQIA community, especially in a space like where the government is against them legally, and legally you can't fight them. So then how would you face that challenge? And that's the question that I'm sort of like interested in to understand. Uh, yeah, so that's what I wanted to ask about that. I hope I was able to make sense.
You made perfect sense. Thank you so much. That's a very important question. Hope, would you like to respond?
Thank you so much, Jitenda, for the question. It's very appropriate and timely. I'm going to say yes and no in terms of the response. So in terms of the yes, Raising Voices does advocacy collectively and also individually. So we are part, for example, of the DVA coalition in Uganda. We are part of Women Accountability Group. We are part of the Uganda Child Rights NGO Network. We are part of different organizations and coalitions where we do advocacy collectively, but also at individual level. But in terms of the specific questions, the current environment, I'm afraid I cannot respond to that online. Maybe that is something that we can share in a physical space, but we am unable to respond to that in such a space like which is virtual. So sorry, I can't share any details, but yeah, we are part of the collective. We are part of different organizations that are advocating. And then one thing which is very clear is, as Raising Voices, we prevent violence against all children in schools. So if it's a child, if they're affected, if they need support, if the teachers need to come together, we work to prevent violence against children in schools. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Hope, and thank you for your honesty as well in your response. Trisha, I would like to invite you. Maybe we should try again for your audio. Not okay, no problem. No, that's okay. We in a couple of minutes we will. Yeah, it is popped up an evaluation poll. If you could please take the time to fill it out, it'll take 30 seconds so that we can evaluate our webinars and we can obviously use your feedback to create better events in future. It should take a couple of seconds to complete. In the meantime, please pop your questions in the chat. Raise your hand if you would like to. Thank you. Erica De Beer asks, how do you deal and prevent violence between children? We've spoken a lot about how children are victims of violence, maybe at the hands of family members, parents, etc. But what happens when children are perpetuating violence against each other? Nayana, would you like to go ahead to put you on the spot?
Yeah, sure. I can go ahead with that. So I talked about a curriculum called Taroki Toli, which is loosely translated in English is a gang of stars or a legion of stars. So that's the curriculum we use in the school space with 11 to 14-year-olds. And these are 14 module, a total of 28 modules, 14 modules per year are rolled out with adolescents between the standard 6th, 7th, and 8th. This actually talks, a whole chapter is dedicated on bullying and how bullying is not acceptable and what bullying does to people. So we generally talk about bullying. We also talk about how to take feedback from others. How does it make you feel taking feedback from others, and how you can remain open, and also talk about strategies to have open communication and how open communications are good. On top of this, as we have the student council and the students are actually getting together to form these committees, they have a space of redressal and they can raise their issues with other students who are in relatively higher power positions, and this can be called out. So this has been our strategy, and this really helps quite a lot in children overall renouncing violence. Even when they do it, they perpetuate it, and even when they are at the receiving end of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nayana. Hope, would you like to respond about how what we do with that in raising voices? Thank you.
Thank you so much. One of our key entry points to schools in regard to addressing violence against children is we address the relationships that we feel perpetrate violence. For example, teacher-students relationship is one, but then peer-to-peer relationship is another key area where there's a lot of violence. And Nian, I want to agree, she spoke about bullying. We've seen this a lot, especially in secondary schools, as children have more agency, as they advance. There's a lot of bullying, there's a lot of sexual harassment and violence perpetrated at that level. But the Good School Toolkit has specific lessons that are addressing that. There are lessons on peer-to-peer violence, but also students are supported to learn life skills, issues of problem solving, communication, working with each other, relationship building. So there are specific resources that address that, and there are specific sessions that address peer-to-peer violence within the schools. And one of the key policies, for example, that schools are supported to, one of the most common policies, an anti-bullying policy in every school that is implementing the Good School Toolkit. And that is about addressing some form of peer-to-peer violence. Yeah. Thank you, Jody. Back to you.
Thank you. I see that Devon has shared the Good School Toolkit. Please go ahead and access that. I have a question. We spoke about how kids, they learn these tools in school, but in your experience, do you find they also take it back to their homes where they are with their parents and their siblings? And how do the parents react to this? Because, they might be learning things that they might be in a violent household, and they are learning things that are completely opposite to what they're experiencing at home and different to their parents' values. So if you could maybe speak a little bit about that. Nayana, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was rigorously shaking my head because I think our program started from the schools, and we soon realized that without engaging the parents, without engaging with the larger environment that they have, it's almost impossible to bring a culture change, a norm shift around this. Now, the first thing that I would say is this, that if you look at the deck that I have shared with you in the results, you will see that because of our curriculum, which is called Tarukitoli, this curriculum has been evaluated through an RCT by JPAL. It shows that adolescents gender attitude is shifted even as much when they are from a very gender regressive family. So firstly, the curriculum itself is that powerful that the gender attitudes in all students shift to a very large degree, and we can nullify the effect of a regressive family. However, like you very well mentioned, that these children are actually going back to the same families, and if the families are very regressive and completely pushing these ideas back. They might be facing greater violence in the families. They might be questioned, why are you questioning like this? So we talk about parental engagement modules, and wherein we work through both the ends. We work through our social media channels. We also create audiovisual materials. For example, this Pinky Pankaj that I introduced you to, they have animated videos in which they say, they talk to their father and mother, and the father and mother are answering, and the father is saying, when your child is asking you a question, it is not about disrespecting you. They can ask you a question. If they disagree, it does not mean disrespect. So we try to have these kind of audio visuals played in the community mobilization events, and we start questioning around them. The second thing is that in our gender transformative curriculum at this point in time, we have 6 parental engagement modules. That means although you are having the module rolled out with you in the classroom or in the community with your peers, there is a page or something that you take back to your parents, and then you discuss those issues with them. They start with very simple things around, what was your father's favorite game when he was a young boy? What was your mother's dream when she was a young girl? And we start, like very much like how Hope was talking about, we give them tools about starting to have conversations, to have a communication on a regular basis. And we have seen in very impoverished and very strict gender normative families, it is not common that parents and children will have regular communication beyond very utilitarian communication, like give me this or I need that, and the parents are giving that. So we through our curriculum try to create that kind of communication between parents and children, and we bring the parents through various different modes to our work. Yeah, I hope that responds to that question.
It does. Thank you very much. I think it's really important to include what's going on in the household, because that really is, apart from school, children are spending so much time at home as well. Hope, would you like to answer the question about how raising voices?
Yes, of course. Yeah, there are so many avenues. Thank you so much, Diana. When you were speaking, I was nodding because I was relating to what Breakthrough is doing. And a lot of that is something that we are doing and also aspiring to do more. And one of the approaches we take, for example, to our media campaign is the benefits approach, the positive framing. And we've had many scenarios where children, for example, are filmed close to what you shared, speaking about how they experience the relationship with their parents, what they would love to have, in terms of relating with their parents, like those violence-free relationships, but what exactly they mean to them as a child. And those are broadcast like in our media campaigns. But also we have cartoon booklets, which children discuss in their clubs, and they are encouraged to take the ideas back home. Now, these cartoon booklets present complex ideas in very simple ways because they are cartoon in nature, very simplified. Children can relate, but the pictures and the colors are quite attractive that even a parent or an adult would relate. So we have booklets like, for example, on gender fairness, how are you using your power, booklets on positive discipline, for example, on what's wrong with corporal punishment. And those are some of the ideas which children carry back home. And again, we also have community activism activities like community dialogues. Niana was talking about engaging through maybe a film showing the community. We have short films, we have dramas, we have stories, sharing some of the good things that happen when there's a good relationship between the adults and the children, and trickling down, of course, to the family level. So there are those avenues. And again, we are seeing this, I don't know, maybe the secondary schools, because of the age group, it's easy for them to run with these ideas and discuss with their parents. And there is also a mechanism of us hearing back, like, when they discussed what happened, how can we pick it up and how can they be supported to emphasize some of the areas during the community dialogues. Is it easy? No. Parents do not so much believe in children telling them what to do, but again, the approach is helpful in terms of them learning from each other, and it's a journey. Yeah. Thanks, Jody.
Thank you so much, Hope. That's a very important point that you are raising. I see, Patricia, you have logged on and you are back with us. Do you maybe want to try again? Hopefully your connection is a little bit better this time. Okay, you are still on mute. Okay, you're unmuted, but it seems as though the audio is still not working, which is really unfortunate. I'm sorry about the connection problems. We still have about 20 minutes left and plenty of time for questions. No questions means you have done an excellent job of explaining and presenting. How did you go about getting buy-in from schools? Because obviously this is something that you require lots of permission. It's not something that we can just say, oh, I'm going to implement that X school over there. So what was the process like in getting that buy-in from the high schools or the primary schools? Diana, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I was asking Hope, but yeah, I'll tell you, I think I'm going to steal a page from Hope's book. The last line that Hope said, that it has never been easy and it has never been a linear process for us. Wherever Breakthrough has tried to work directly, there Breakthrough had to seek permission of the district government. If the district government did not agree, then there is an administrative block. Then we tried to get permission from the administrative block. At times, due to the bureaucracy, it has taken a lot of time. We have gone, requested each school's principal to give us access, because every school has some extra times during the school period. For example, they have a play period, or they have a welcome life, a life skill period. So we generally try to tap onto that. And mostly, however, we have got permission from the districts who have been happy to look at our curriculum. And of course, when we worked through our, in Haryana, when we worked with about 120 schools, we got a permission from the state to go ahead and work with those 120 schools. As we go into our scale-up model, here, going to schools are not so difficult because the government at the state is actually accepting our curriculum and put it as part of their curriculum. However, getting that curriculum ratified and getting that curriculum a stamp of approval becomes a very big task, because there are several levels of bureaucracy available and several departments, even within the education departments. There is a department that ratifies the content. There is a department that works on the content. There is a teachers training department. So there are various people, various moving parts have to come together for this to be rolled out. Yeah, so no one answer. We just have to be very patient. And but once the curriculum is rolled out, once the teachers see the benefits of it, they actually call us, like very much like Hope said, that even the teachers, when they get transferred, they go to some other district, they call us and say, why are you not working in our district? When are you coming to our district? Is something that keeps us on our toes. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Hope, and in your context, how did you go about getting the buy-in?
Thank you so much. Nayana, you have made my work easy. I can relate to how long it takes for curriculum to, to be approved. And for us, it took several years to get the Good School Toolkit certified by the National Curriculum Development Center. It's one of the requirements for what gets to the schools, what gets, as acceptable content, which can go to all the schools. And we are glad that we have that, and that makes it a lot easier, especially even in the current terrain. Like, it's easy to show that, this has been reviewed and certified, and the processes are also long. But even without that, we have a very good relationship. Raising Voices sits on different committees at the national level with the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Gender. For example, the Basic Education Working Group, the Secondary Education Working Group. We are part of the Intersectional Committee on Violence Against Children. And these give us an opportunity to have that relationship, that rapport. We work very, very closely, that even when the government is maybe designing a policy, we are on the table, like we are sitting on the table and discussing with the gender unit at the Ministry of Education on how this should look like in terms of equity for boys and girls, in terms of preventing violence against all children in schools. So that has really given us a good advantage. But even at the district level, we usually have to go through the district education officers. But again, it becomes easy if you have a working relationship from the national. Even up to the school level, we introduced the idea by meeting the administration. And believe you me, if they say no, then we can't do much. We've had instances where they have said no, or where they have said, no, we can't take this because we believe in corporal punishment. You guys are going to teach us 1, 2, 3. For some reason, the first thing that comes to a teacher's mind is corporal punishment. But again, it's a journey. Like she's saying, sometimes there is back and forth, like you move steps, then you come back. So there is that, inception meetings at the school level, bringing together the different stakeholders within the school. What we have learned, though, over the years is that if the school administration is switched on, the implementation is going to be a lot easier. In our earlier years, when we were implementing the Good School Toolkit, we put a lot of emphasis on working directly with the teachers, the protagonists at school level. But then we learned that they don't have a lot of power in terms of what gets to happen. And so it's very important that there is buy-in from the administrators. So in our initial trainings for the protagonists, we also have carved out content for the school administrators to be brought together, and they are taken through the Good School Toolkit, what it means and what is in need for them. For some reason, schools are so concerned about only learning outcomes, but we tell them, look here, if you address the operational culture, if students study in a good learning environment, you are going to realize the educational outcomes that you're coming with. So it's a journey. It takes a lot of back and forth and a lot of addressing, for example, the expectations from the onset. I don't know what the case is for other organizations, but you have partners, you have colleagues who might come in and they're coming with benefits, they're coming with so many different things, but you are coming in to work with this school and you want them to own the change that they want to see in the school and sustain that change. So you do not have a lot of finances to spend. So you need to be clear from the onset that this is what we are going to do and we are going to do it together. And as time goes by, things get clearer. One of the hardest committees to engage has been the parents. And for some reason, it's not usual that parents come to the school in our culture, in our setting. Parents come to school only when there is a meeting, only when they have specific things to do, especially in the urban centers. But we have learned over time that, when schools have activities, they infuse some aspects of the Good School Toolkit ideas so that a parent doesn't come to school to only do the GST activities, but as part of the school structure and the school curriculum and activities, the ideas are infused there so that they don't feel like they're being stressed to do that. So yeah, the beginning is not so easy, but as time goes by, they come to realize and appreciate that this is something that will contribute to what they want to see in their schools and in their homes.
Absolutely. You raise an important point about how so much of the work that we do really relies on relationships with other sectors, with other organizations, government, whoever. And in our work at the ISS, we spend a lot of time just building those relationships. And it's really time consuming, but it's essential down the, 10 steps down the line, those relationships are really, really important. We have a question from Heyde. It seems like all initiatives are from NGOs. Why are departments of education, i.e. government, not addressing it? Nayana, do you have a response? Thank you.
Yeah, I would just say that I saw that very interesting question. Thank you. However, I think I would like to address it like this. The government definitely has a mandate. If the government does not have a mandate, it is almost impossible for NGOs to come in and work around things. So most of the time, for example, if you look at a country like India, there are, like I talked about the school management committee. The school management committees are a mandate of the government. It actually talks about parental engagement. The national education policy talks about gender in a very big manner. When we have gone to work with the states of Punjab and Odisha, we have seen that the government, especially the bureaucrats who met us for the first time in Punjab, they give us the idea that please do not keep your curriculum as a standalone curriculum in the in the curriculum of the schools. Let's integrate it within the curriculum so that it cannot be dropped off. I think it's a fantastic idea. I would say that they definitely have the heart in the right place and the political will. Otherwise, this would not have been possible with the state governments of Punjab and Odisha. So yeah, government departments of education are definitely interested in it. However, like Hope was also saying, so think of this, the enormous amount of mandate that they are working with. They are working with teacher-student ratio. They're working with infrastructure. They're working with teachers' performance, students' performance. What is happening to the transition of students from primary to secondary and secondary to tertiary. So in all these things, at times, some of the mandates get lost, and NGOs like us actually help the government to refocus on these mandates. And there are NGOs which are helping the government in terms of teacher-student ratios, how they can do better, and how the school infrastructures can also be better. I think this is our mandate. So we go and partner with the government, but definitely government has a mandate around it. Otherwise, I don't think it is possible without the partnerships and collaborations to work at such scale in countries like India and Uganda.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nayana. I am watching the time. We have 8 minutes left. Patricia, I can see you on the screen now. Should we maybe try one more time? Hopefully it will work. You are on mute. Okay, you're unmuted. No, you're still on mute. Not okay. It's such a pity that thank you so much. I think we can take a final round of questions before we close for the day. Does anyone in our audience have a final thought or comment or reflections? Okay. Okay, we have a question from Gerard Stewart. I will read it out. With the main goal being to stop incidents in schools before they happen, what kind of changes can be made to the support provided to the victim in the case it does outside of the school? Perhaps educating not only parents, but close friends and family, as well as how to provide a solid support structure. Absolutely. Okay. Would anyone like to respond to the comment/question?
I think I have nothing like to, I would completely agree to that, educating not only the parents, but close friends and family as well. We work with a socio-ecological model, which is, we work with this model because we believe that the individual is at the center, but the family, the community, the peer groups, and the adults who are affecting their lives are very, very important. So yes, we work around it, and I completely agree with Stuart that we need to work on this. However, what kind of support can be provided to the victim is this, that when I was talking about it, it depends on the country's laws. In our country, there is a structure called Integrated Child Protection Services, ICPS, which has committees from village onwards. So at the village level, it's called Village Level Child Protection Committee, in which the elected representatives and the parents are part of these committees. So the issues that a child is facing can be taken to these committees, and these committees then have the support at the block and at the district level. And the district level committee is led by the district management, a district magistrate who has a judicial power. So they can take justice related calls around this. When we work with the schools, we try to connect the schools to the district level child protection committees so that they are constantly talking to each other, and they know the mandates and they know when to step in. I hope that helps.
Thank you. And I see a final question from Patricia, and I think that this is a very important question. Please, could you share how the gender transformative approaches could inform teacher pedagogy? I always struggle with that, word. Hope, would you like to go ahead?
Sure. I think it's related to what we shared last about the question on how the government involved and the education departments are involved. And one area which I would cite is, for example, in Uganda, before we have tried to have the sessions on VAC infused within the teacher training curriculum, for example, we have tried to work with teacher training institutions, but then we have burnt our fingers because we realize that they are not as easy to influence, like in terms of what gets taught, but it's a journey that we are on. And like Nayana has said, sometimes the government cannot take the whole approach. You know, they can't implement the whole approach as it is. But for example, for the case of Uganda, the education department has adopted the positive discipline, for example, the concept, and that is something that they are running with. And another exciting development in Uganda is that the Ministry of Education has the gender working group, the gender unit. And the gender unit is in charge of ensuring that these ideas to do with gender fairness are infused within the curriculum. So it's good to note that the gender mainstream unit is right now developing an SRGBV module, which should be taught in the teachers' training institutions. And I think by that, it will be part and parcel of what gets taught and what really gets down to the schools. Because as of now, violence against children and all these gender transformative approaches are treated as co-curricular activities, like they are not part of the curriculum, but we feel that is one way through which these ideas can be infused and they become part of what is taught and what is mandated for each school to run with. Yeah, that's what I can share for Uganda's experience.
Thank you, Hope. We have come to the end of today's webinar, which I think has been a really interesting, fruitful, inspiring conversation. A very big thank you to our panelists. Thank you so much for sharing your work. Patricia, I'm sorry that there was a couple of technical difficulties, but thank you for being here anyway and for asking your questions. We have learned a lot about school-based interventions, and I'm sure many of us will go back and reflect on the lessons that you have shared today. Thank you for your valuable contributions and the important work that you're doing every day, to prevent violence against children. Thank you to our audience for your engagement, for staying along with us. Please be on the lookout for future events from the ISS and for the last Inspire webinar towards the end of the year. The recording of this event will be available on the ISS's website. You can go back to, you can share it with your networks. That would be wonderful. Thank you very much for participating and enjoy the rest of your day.